Hey everyone, so I wanted to give you a quick update on my tower defense project. At any given time, I'm actually working on several different projects. It's just a matter of which one I have the assets for, which ones I have the inspiration for, and then I usually work on that one. So this is actually an update to a game I've already released. It's called Town Guardian. It's available on itch.io if you are interested in heading over there and checking it out. Currently, it only has one mode, an arcade mode. The enemies spawn on the right side of the screen and they travel to the left, and your character's on the left side of the screen, and you can travel up and down shooting at the enemy to defend the town behind you. So typical type of old school arcade game, except it's 3D rather than 2D. Anyways, because the enemies travel in a linear fashion along lanes, it really lends itself to a tower defense game. So I've been trying to add a new mode. So you'll have two different ways of playing exactly the same game. You'll have the arcade mode and you'll have the tower defense mode. But now I have to acquire new assets to make the tower defense mode work, and I just did acquire one such asset recently. So I decided that I wanted to have basically what was a Grenadier. So it's someone who lobs some kind of munition, a bomb or something. And the reason why you'd want this, in addition to regular range units, is because the range units that I have shoot in a linear fashion. So they just shoot in a straight line along the lane. So that means any enemy walking along the lane at any point can be hit by that shot. Whereas with the Grenadier, it's lobbing it into the air and will only do damage where it lands, but it'll be AoE damage. So that's one of the reasons why you want to do that, is because, okay, you're going to have AoE damage rather than one target damage, but the trade-off is that it's a very specific area that it does the AoE. This also allows you to do something else. If you decide to turn friendly fire on, which a lot of tower defense games don't have, they don't have friendly fire, then this would create the need to be more strategic with the units that you place. You'd put the lobber in the back. That way he throws the munition over the heads of your other units, that he's not accidentally hitting your units, he's throwing over them. So it lends itself to more complex gameplay like that. I don't know if I'll enable friendly fire. We'll see how much I can put into this. So anyways, on the asset store, I finally found a unit that fits that, and it's this guy here, Mr. Bomber. And I wanted to call this out for a couple reasons. One, this is an entirely different artist. So the person who made this, you probably can't see the names because of the watermark, but this one is by Mesh Smith, whereas the other ones are by Downrain DC. And I just want to reiterate that it is perfectly legit and perfectly possible to combine units from different developers, from different designers. And it doesn't have to just be animated units. It could be furnishings or environmental assets. I already have environmental assets from multiple designers. So it's perfectly legit. The only challenge is that you need to make sure you have a similar art style. You don't want things to be contrasting unless, of course, you're going for that. So if you want things to have a consistent aesthetic, then you do have to make sure that you stick with whether it's all low polygon or all photorealistic, whatever, you want a similar art style. But yes, it's perfectly possible, absolutely possible to combine assets from multiple designers. Okay, so if we slide over here, so as I mentioned before, this is how the selector up here displays the unit that you've selected. And that is, I have a camera that sends its feed to a render texture, and then the render texture is applied to that square in the upper left corner that we just looked at. Since the last time we talked, I added this in the background that you can't see the skybox, and I also shut off receive shadows. That way it just looks like a flat color in the background. I might put some kind of pattern or design later, but for now, at least it gets rid of the distraction of the skybox in the background. So there he is. He has just one animation cycle here, and that is him like juggling the bombs. Okay, so when an enemy is in the same lane as him, he'll start tossing the grenades. I didn't even have to change any of the coding because I attached the script to him, and the script does the same things. It looks to see what lane the unit is in, and then it looks to see what lane the enemy is in, and if they're the same, then they start to attack. The only problem is with the Grenadier is that it doesn't look quite right because he really shouldn't start throwing into the enemy is within range of his shots. Because again, if he's like say here and he's throwing to here, it looks a little weird when the enemy is here and they're throwing here. So eventually I will adjust that, and that's not a big deal because, like I said, right now it just looks at which lane they're in. In other words, the Z coordinate. All I have to do is take into consideration the X coordinate. So X coordinate is from here to here. Okay. So I'm just going to have to do that. And I don't think that's really, that just be really tedious to show that. But if you want to know how to do it, I can show you when it's done. Okay. So I've updated you on this, showed you him. Now, the bomb itself that he throws, this was just made in Unity. I just combined a 3D object sphere with a cube. I shrunk the cube down, did the typical kind of add collider, add rigid body. So that's all the normal kind of stuff that we've talked about in the past. But I added a script to this, and the script does a couple things. A, it controls its trajectory. Two, it will instantiate this particle system, which is the explosion when it lands, which we'll take a look at in a second. So let's just take a quick look at that script. It's very straightforward. So public game object boom PS. So this is the game object to reference, obviously, the particle system. And really all the script does is when the object is instantiated, that's the script is attached to, which is the bomb. So when it gets instantiated, that's when it gets thrown. Get component rigid body velocity equals new vector 3660. So this is moving at 6 Unity units per second horizontally to the right and 6 Unity units per second vertically, so up. Well, vertical could be down, but it's +6, so it's up in this case. And the reason why it's not a straight line, why it's a, well, you haven't seen it yet, but why it's an arc is because on the grenade, as I mentioned, I used a rigid body and I used gravity. So since gravity is activated as soon as you do this, even though this is linear, gravity is affecting it. And then the other thing, again, this is attached to the grenade, void on trigger enter. So we're looking for a collision with a trigger. And we're simply saying if it's colliding with the ground, then instantiate the boom object and destroy the grenade. So pretty straightforward. Look for a collision, instantiate the particle system, and destroy the object that has collided with the ground. Now I do want to take a look at the particle system because there's a couple things worth noting. So I'm not sure when they added this, but this is very useful. So in the main section of the particle system, see this here stop action? What this does is if you have your particle system have a finite time, so see how it says duration 0.6, no looping. Well, when the last particle has been destroyed and this is no longer running, stop action will now destroy the object. So you don't have to apply a script that says destroy after X amount of seconds. You can just set this as stop action destroy. Very, very useful. I'm not sure when they added this, but I'm very glad that they did because so many times I made a script. I'm sure I have tutorials out there showing how to do that. And now that it's really not necessary anymore. That when the particle system stops, it will automatically destroy if you choose that setting. It defaults to none, but you can do disable, destroy, callback. So generally, you'd probably want to destroy. So that's the first thing I want to mention. Second is if we look at this particle system, you got a couple things going on. It's actually two particle systems. So you can add a child object, that's the smoke, and then you have the dirt, which is the top, the parent particle system. So for the parent particle system, I think I already mentioned this in one other tutorial, which is why I want to mention it here. This usually defaults to billboard, and it's a 2D image. Well, you can choose mesh, which is a 3D object. Choose any mesh from your scene, excuse me, I keep saying scene, from your project, and you can choose whatever material. So you can mix and match meshes and materials. I chose orange. It doesn't have to be. The final version will probably be like brown or gray or something to make it look more like rock. And you could just keep adding. You could add a third particle system that looks like grass. So it looks like, ground and grass, and you have again, the smoke coming out too. So, all right, so I think that's about it for the explanation as far as what's been done. Now we can just play it out. So again, you can see it's a solid background now. We'll press 6. There he is. He has the juggle animation. We place him, and he starts to throw. And like I said, he's throwing even before they get into range. So depending on, do you care or not, then you might want it to be very precise. But if you don't care, then you can just leave it like that. Like I said, it's just a matter of checking his exposition to the exposition of the enemies on that lane. They already checked to make sure they're in the right lane. Now you'd have to check to for their proximity. I think that's about it. This really wasn't meant to be a long tutorial. Not really a tutorial, excuse me, more of a devlog, part devlog, part tutorial. If there's anything else you'd like to see, just let me know. Like I said, this is really going to be an update. So rather than being a standalone game, it's going to be an update to a game that's already out there in itch.io called Town Guardian. And that's about it. So if there's anything else you want to see, please let me know. And please enjoy the rest of your day.